Real quick, I just wanted to let you know if you live in Oregon and you have Kaiser that you can get your COVID and your flu shots now. I got both of mine yesterday. I do feel a little bit like ass today, I'm not going to lie. The COVID booster always kind of knocks me on my butt a little bit, and I figure I might as well get it and the flu shot at the same time and feel real miserable for 24 hours. Not real miserable, it's just a little bit miserable. It actually reminds me of the last time that I had COVID. I've only had it twice. The first time I was like not really sick at all. It felt like a mild cold. I had other members of my family who were incredibly ill. The second time I got COVID 2 years ago, it was the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. I was like, I understand how people don't make it through this. There's nothing that I can compare it to. That cough and my bones hurt. And I was unbelievably sick. When I get the COVID booster, I always get a little bit of that like ache deep in my bones, and I get a tiny bit of a cough just for like 24 hours. And it just reminds me of how like I never want to get COVID again. It makes me so sad that RFK Jr. is trying to deny people access to necessary life-saving medical care because he's a fucking eugenicist, crackpot, grifter who in his, wormhole addled brain has gotten it in his head that vaccines are bad. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if he believes that. I don't know if he believes it. He's just used that to sell an awful lot of books. I don't actually know what he believes in other than his own self-aggrandizement, his own desperate need to show his family and the whole world that he's not the stupidest Kennedy and that he can be big and powerful. Like it obviously is a big fat fucking cope, because he feels inferior to the rest of his family. And I'm not just saying that. There's been reporting about that over the last year or so. I will just keep beating that drum as long as it takes. RFK Jr. needs to resign. If you have a senator that you can pressure, if your senator especially is a doctor, hearings that we had the other day where RFK Jr. was like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. He's killing people. Not just the COVID vaccine, right? Ending all kinds of vital medical research is killing people. You don't know if that person is going to be you, right? Because he has halted medical advancements, treatments, and cures from being discovered and from being approved. He's fired all of the qualified public health officials and physicians and staffed his health and human services with complete quacks and wellness grifters. When I went to get my COVID shot, I had to sign a form stating that I understood the new guidelines for COVID vaccines and that I had to be somebody who had at least one of the risk factors that made me high risk so that I could get that COVID vaccine. And I do, so I was able to get it. But y'all understand that being healthy does not protect you from having devastating side effects from COVID, from developing long COVID, from dying of COVID. I think it's important to remember as we're looking at the fact that the government is shut down and that what the Republicans want is for us to not have access to healthcare, or the healthcare that we can access to be far more expensive. Premiums are going to go up an awful lot for every single person in this country as a result of the Republicans ending Medicaid coverage for tens of millions of Americans and ending Affordable Care Act subsidies for millions of Americans and for closing hundreds and hundreds of hospitals around the country. I think there's at least 6 hospitals in my state of Oregon that are scheduled to potentially close in the next couple of years because of what the Republicans have done. And it is going to be rural hospitals in red communities and communities that voted for Republican members of Congress that are going to lose access to their health care. And it's going to kill people in rural Oregon. If you now have to drive 3 hours to get to an emergency room instead of 45 minutes, are you going to make it? The specialty that you need is largely funded by Medicaid. And so the revocation of Medicaid funding means that that particular clinic, that particular specialty is no longer able to stay open in your area. How are you going to be impacted? Anyway, I understand that we are living in a country where white Christian nationalists, the evangelical church, has spent decades eroding trust in science. Not just an anti-science mindset, but like an outright fear of science and of education. If our kids learn that species are in fact mutable, then they won't believe in a literal 6-day creation anymore. This false belief that science undermines religion, that science is a threat to religion. Good time to remind you that one of the world's leading experts on climate change is Dr. Katherine Hayhoe, who is a devout Christian. What is it? What is the scripture verse? Perfect love casts out fear. There's nothing about a legitimate faith practice that should be afraid of science, that should be threatened by science. When I was a practicing Christian, it was my love of creation, my passion for science that amplified my faith practice. right? The expansion of my awe and wonder from learning about science on a macro scale and then also a micro scale. But Maha has used a bunch of pseudoscience, wellness grift bullshit to make people fearful of legitimate science, of legitimate medical practice. And the fact that we have so many people in this country who are afraid of science and lack scientific literacy means that they're much more easily hoodwinked by people like RFK, right? Somebody who will, any of these wellness grifters who will throw citation after citation after citation at somebody, or will drop a whole bunch of scientific terms but not use them correctly. They're counting on the American public being ignorant of the definitions of those terms and not knowing how to read and interpret a scientific paper. They're thinking, oh, I can cite a source, even if you read that journal article and doesn't actually back up the claims that I'm saying. I'm, performing this appeal to authority. Oh, I cited a source. I'm trusting you won't go check it. So we're living in a country where our health is worse. Our lives are more in danger than ever. Science is being undermined. Medical advancement is being undermined. Our access to quality medical care is being undermined. We're watching a brain drain where our scientists are leaving the country, not only because Congress's new restrictions on graduate school and medical school means that people cannot take out student loans in sufficient quantity to cover their education. And also you can go to another country and work in their lab without fear. You're going to lose all your funding because you use the word translocation in an article and the regime's AI bot searched your paper and saw trans and was like, woke agenda, and took away your funding. It's devastating to me that we are living in an age where our physicians are not able to make our medical decisions. It is idiots in Congress who have no training. It is RFK Jr., who's a grifty lawyer with no medical training, that is making healthcare decisions for 340 million people. Those decisions should be made between you and your physician. And instead, we have the promotion of moon juice, raw milk drinking, crystal healing. You just eat clean and you get skinny. Because fascism loves you to be skinny. They want you to be hungry because it's much easier to control you when you're hungry. And when you're constantly worried about your body shape and how it's being presented to other people, we want you focused on all of that shit that will not make you well. It will not make you healthy. It will make you easier to manipulate and easier to control. And decades of erosion of scientific education and cultivating a fear of science from the Christian right has helped bring us to this place where we're at now, where a brainworm snake oil salesman is making healthcare decisions for all of us, trying to make it so that we cannot access vaccines to, these are vaccines for what they call vaccine preventable diseases. If you don't give that preventive care, more and more people are going to be sick. And we don't even just have to look, at death statistics, mortality rates from these diseases. Suffering, y'all, we have a right to access medical care to reduce our suffering. Have you ever seen a little child with whooping cough? Why is it that we're living in a nation that is tolerating a eugenicist who wants to take away our health care to make us actively sicker and make us spend a shit ton more money to access reduced health care? Why are we living in a country where we want Republican congressmen who think that if a woman swallows a camera, that it will end up in her uterus and they can see the fetus? Yep. Guys, that chuckle fuck in the exam room getting between us and our doctors. Anyway, thanks for letting me rant. I could rant about the state of our healthcare. We deserve so much better than this, y'all. We deserve so much better than this. We could have an America with universal healthcare. We could fully fund medical research. We could get those cures for ovarian cancer, ALS, rare genetic diseases. We could get better treatment for stroke, cerebral palsy, complex migraines, broken bones. We could have medical advancements. But the regime is cutting off funding for all of that shit because they deem it too woke and they want to hand all of that money up to the billionaires. They will all still get the highest levels of care. They'll still get their concierge care. They'll fly somewhere where medicine is not being gutted to access that care. It's us, the working class in this country, they want sicker, easier to control, less prosperous. So yes, I'm reminding you, please go get your COVID shot. Please say what you need to say to be able to access that care. But also to remind you that we all deserve better. Every working class person in this country deserves far better. We could fund universal health care. We do not have to live in a declining America where Trump and RFK Jr. are taking us backward and making us sicker. The choice is ours. The choice is ours. We don't have to tolerate this. We don't have to live in a country like this. Our healthcare CEOs are raking in obscene profits. A grifter lawyer is telling you that your baby can't get access to childhood vaccines. That even if you're high risk, you can't get access to cancer screenings. We don't have to live like this. By the way, don't forget No King's Day, October 18th. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring your coworkers.